All right, let's cut the fluff. You've heard the headlines. India's cozying up to Russia. Why is India ignoring America's calls? People are freaking out, pointing fingers, acting like it's some kind of betrayal. Let me tell you something, and listen close. India doesn't need to pick a side. India is the side. This isn't about Team Russia vs. Team America. This is about Team India and how a rising superpower is finally playing by its own rules. You want to know why India is standing with Russia while brushing off pressure from Washington? Let's break it down. No spin, just truth. Let's go. India's foreign policy has long stood on a firm foundation known as strategic autonomy, a principle that emphasizes sovereign decision-making free from external influence or pressure. In today's turbulent geopolitical climate, that principle is not only alive, it's more visible and assertive than ever before. Unlike many nations that are quick to align with powerful blocs or fall under the influence of dominant countries, India has consistently chosen an independent path. From the days of the Cold War to the present multipolar world, India has demonstrated a commitment to maintaining flexibility in its foreign relations. While others may join alliances out of fear or dependency, India engages from a position of strength and balance. In recent years, this has been especially evident in how India has handled the Russia-Ukraine conflict. While the United States and its Western allies rallied nations to isolate and sanction Russia, India stood firm. Washington applied pressure through diplomatic channels, media narratives, and even veiled threats of consequences for continuing economic ties with Moscow. But New Delhi didn't flinch, it didn't react with hostility, but it didn't bend either. Why? Because India understands that true sovereignty means making decisions based on national interest, not international expectations. Strategic autonomy is not just a slogan, it is a policy compass. India doesn't blindly follow any global power, it evaluates situations through the lens of its own economic needs, security priorities, and long-term geopolitical goals. India's refusal to sever ties with Russia doesn't mean it supports every action taken by Moscow. It means India refuses to be coerced. It chooses its partners and its policies on its own terms. Whether it's continuing defense cooperation, buying discounted oil to control domestic inflation, or collaborating in multilateral forums, India decides what works best for its people. Moreover, strategic autonomy doesn't isolate India, it empowers it. It allows India to be a bridge between competing blocs, a voice of balance, and a leader in a world craving stability. In standing its ground, India isn't defying the West, it's defining itself. India isn't playing America's game or Russia's game, it's playing India's game. And that, more than anything, signals a confident, rising power that refuses to be anyone's pawn. Strategic autonomy is not just India's past, it's India's future. Not defiance, maturity. From the Cold War to now, India has refused to be boxed in. It was a founding leader of the non-aligned movement. That mindset still drives its decisions. When the Russia-Ukraine war escalated and the US expected nations to line up behind sanctions, India took a step back and said, "We'll decide what's best for our people, not what's popular in Washington." That's not defiance, that's maturity. India isn't supporting Russia, it's supporting itself, its energy security, its military preparedness, its economic growth. And if working with Russia helps deliver those outcomes without compromising national interest, then that's the road India will take, period. India's energy demands are immense. As the third largest consumer of oil in the world, India cannot afford to play geopolitical games when it comes to energy security. This isn't about political alliances, it's about practical survival. With over 1.4 billion people and a rapidly expanding economy, India needs a steady, affordable, and diversified energy supply to keep its engines running, its industries thriving, and its citizens moving. When the Russia-Ukraine war broke out in 2022, the West responded with sweeping sanctions against Moscow. The global oil market reacted swiftly, prices soared, supplies tightened, and uncertainty gripped the world. Many Western nations rushed to cut off Russian energy imports in a symbolic show of condemnation. But India took a different path. It didn't respond emotionally, it responded strategically. While others were backing away, India stepped in and quietly began negotiating oil deals with Russia, securing crude oil at discounts of up to 30% below global market rates. For critics, this was controversial. Some accused India of funding Russia's war machine, but that was a narrow view. India wasn't supporting Russia, it was supporting its own people. Every barrel of discounted Russian oil helped India stabilize domestic fuel prices, contain inflation, and support crucial infrastructure projects. In a time when global uncertainty threatened economic collapse in many developing countries, India's strategy ensured that buses ran, factories operated, and food prices stayed in check. For a country with massive energy demands and a tight budget, this wasn't a luxury. It was survival. Even more noteworthy was how India conducted these transactions. A significant portion of the oil was paid for in Indian rupees rather than US dollars, a bold move that not only reduced dependency on the dollar, but also strengthened India's role in reshaping global financial dynamics. This step toward economic sovereignty sent a powerful message. India is willing to challenge old systems when they no longer serve its interests. Meanwhile, many Western countries that were preaching ethics and sanctions were quietly increasing their own imports from other authoritarian regimes. India saw the double standard and refused to be lectured. It made it clear decisions on trade and energy would be based on national interest, not global pressure. This wasn't about choosing Russia. It was about choosing smart, and in that choice, India demonstrated what a mature, independent superpower looks like. One of the most significant and bold moves India made during its energy negotiations with Russia wasn't just about oil, it was about currency. Instead of following the traditional route of paying for oil in US dollars, India opted to pay for a substantial portion of its imports in Indian rupees. This wasn't just a financial decision, it was a geopolitical statement. For decades, the US dollar has dominated global trade. Energy markets, in particular, are heavily dollarized. This gives the United States outsized influence over global financial systems and the ability to use sanctions as a powerful tool of pressure. But India's decision to bypass the dollar in some transactions directly challenged that dominance. It signaled a shift towards a multipolar financial world where alternative currencies and bilateral arrangements matter. By settling trade in rupees, India not only protected itself from the volatility of dollar-based sanctions, but also strengthened its own currency's role in international trade. It was a step toward economic sovereignty, and it sent a clear message: India won't be boxed in by outdated financial dependencies. Meanwhile, Western powers continued buying oil and doing business with other autocratic regimes, all while lecturing India about morality and values. India saw the contradiction. How could those who make exceptions for their interests turn around and question India for doing the same? India's quiet but firm response was simple. Don't tell us how to act when your hands aren't clean either. In choosing to pay in rupees, India didn't just save money, it reshaped the conversation around global trade, financial independence, and fairness. It wasn't rebellion, it was realism. And it was a sign that India is ready to lead on its own terms. India's defense ties with Russia aren't new. Over 60% of India's military hardware comes from Russia. We're talking tanks, fighter jets, submarines, the backbone of India's defense. And unlike the West, Russia never imposed conditions or political baggage. Take the BrahMos missile, co-developed with Russia. That's not just a purchase, that's partnership. The US wants to sell jets and drones to India, but with strings attached, limited tech transfer, political oversight, and future sanctions. India compares it to Russia's approach: no strings, more trust, and shared development. Trust over threats and defense. Trust is everything. Russia has consistently delivered when others hesitated or imposed restrictions. That's why India continues to prioritize its military ties with Russia, even as it expands cooperation with the West. India won't gamble with its security. It relies on what's proven and what respects its sovereignty. Exposing American hypocrisy, India has been watching, and it sees the double standards. The same US that criticizes India for trading with Russia has no problem importing oil from Saudi Arabia or doing arms deals with questionable regimes. India isn't blind. It just refuses to be bullied by countries that break their own rules. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar summed it up when he said, Europe buys more Russian oil than India. So why target us? India won't play along with selective outrage. Its job is to serve its own citizens, not please Washington. India and BRICS, a new global center. India is at the center of the multipolar world that's rising. BRICS has grown, adding Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE. It's no longer a bloc, it's a momentum shift. And India is helping lead that shift. Russia backs India's leadership in BRICS on economic proposals, reforms, and global balance. The US, meanwhile, hesitates to back India's push for UN reform or global leadership. India notices, and it responds with clarity. Multi-alignment, India's unique model. India is not choosing a side. It's choosing every side that respects it. This is multi-alignment, working with everyone, being loyal to none. India buys oil from Russia, develops tech with the US, produces jets with France, and joins the Quad to counter China. It's diplomacy on India's terms. No submission, no conditions, just cooperation with sovereignty intact. That's the future of foreign policy. And India is already living it. Conclusion: India is the power. Let's wrap this up. India isn't ignoring America, it's just refusing to be bossed around. It's not blindly siding with Russia. It's strategically choosing what works. Energy security, defense partnerships, global leadership. This isn't East versus West. This is India, center stage, calling its own shots. And if that makes some global powers uncomfortable, well, maybe it's time they got comfortable with a new reality. India isn't a spectator anymore. India is a player, a partner, and yes, a power.